Next, we'll have the County of Newberry Detention Center repairs and improvements. We have Captain Shane Kitchen and Sheriff Lee Foster.
While our Captain Kitchen is getting the PowerPoint up and running for our presentation, I want to thank you for the opportunity allowing us to present. If my voice is a little scratchy and I'm a little dusty and not quite as kempt as I'd like to be, we've been out working remarkably hard today. It's not been a great day when you got something this important going on. I also kind of feel like, this is kind of special for me. I kind of feel like I'm on a TV show, The Shark Tank. I'm making a presentation to y'all, and y'all get to either tell me I'm gone. I guess you don't get to tell me I'm fired. But again, it's an important thing for us to do. Captain Kitchen and I are going to be making a presentation regarding a project that's probably not going to be the most popular project that you're going to hear. Other than the brave employees that we have that work in the jail, we don't really have a constituency. It's not going to be a real popular choice, but it's going to be a necessary one and a critical one. The jail that was originally built replaced the one that was right over across the street from where the Opera House is. This one was built in 1973. It was built in a time when technology was different. It was built in a time when the population that is served by the jail was different. And there was a minor renovation in the year 2003. The jail is a 24-hour, 7-day, 365-day-a-year operation. It has a lot of people in there. We have an average daily population of around 100 inmates, and that's not counting the staff that work in there. And needless to say, the people that are placed inside of the jail are not there voluntarily. There are very few people that come and say they want to be there. We do have some people that do that, but very few people come and wish to be there. Therefore, the wear and tear on the building is a lot harder as it would be with any other publicly owned building. You previously heard a presentation by the Opera House about the effects of humidity on the building. Well, this is no different, and this is going to be one of the things Captain Kitchen is going to be talking about, is the effects of humidity. We have a lot of people packed in a relatively small space. In addition, because of that, you have hygiene requirements, and so people are taking showers almost 24 hours a day to maintain hygiene and cleanliness. So there's a lot of humidity that is drawn in there. When the building was designed, it was not designed for that. The ventilation is very poor. The HVAC system that is in there is mostly pieced together from the 1973 area. And you'll see some pictures about that. In addition, humidity has on just the people that are in there, it also has an effect on the physical plant. It's causing the rusting of the doors and rusting of the steel-cased windows, which is not only a safety hazard, but it's also a security hazard, because eventually they're going to be able to push through those windows and get to the outside. What we're doing today is asking for some money for a renovation, particularly a renovation of the sanitation system. It's almost completely broken. You're going to see some slides in here that will show you what happens. Not only do we have a problem with just masses of people using the sanitation system, but as I mentioned before, the people that are there don't particularly want to be there, and they often find ways of putting things in the sanitation system to cause backups. And the backup comes into there. If we built a new jail, estimates are that it would cost anywhere between $9 and $12 million, depending on how we would design it and how we would put it into a place. What we're doing is asking for a renovation of the jail and some repair work that'll hopefully carry us through at least 10 more years till we can find a revenue source adequate that would build it, and also to do a little bit more planning. You know, a jail is, again, it's not a popular place. Everybody wants to put people in jail if they do wrong. If you're the victim of a crime, you won't put somebody in jail. But when you find the obscene cost of putting people in jail, then it doesn't become very popular, because it's very costly not only to build a structure to put people in, but it's also very costly to maintain and to house people. And the jail is a very high liability operation on the county. A lot of lawsuits can come from that. Prior to Captain Kitchen coming up, I want to take the opportunity to say that we emphatically don't run a Holiday Inn at the jail. It's nowhere near that. The jail is a very Spartan operation. We take pride in the fact that we can provide housing at a relatively low cost compared to other places across the state. It's not a great place to be. And I'm going to use a phrase that Mr. Adams used. While we recognize that inmates are sentient beings, we also recognize the fact that we have to have a place, and the place does not have to be nice, and it doesn't have to be excellent, but it has to be a place to where we can humanitarily keep somebody and provide security from the public. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Captain Kitchen so he can make the full presentation and using videos.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good evening.
Good evening.
I am Captain Kitchen. I am the jail administrator. I'm here to talk to you about the much needed repairs to the Newberry County Detention Center. Let's see, here it is. A little bit of background on me. I've been with Newberry County Sheriff's Office for 13 years. I started work at the detention center as a floor officer, so all these gentlemen and ladies you see in the gray shirts, they are here in support of this, and I have been in their shoes. I know what it is that they have to work with on a day-to-day basis, and you're going to see a little bit of that here in just a second. The Newberry County Detention Center was There you go. Okay. The detention center is located at 3239 Willowbridge Road. It's also the home of the Newberry County Magistrate's Office, originally constructed in 1974 with an addition and remodel in 2002 and 2003. With the remodel, we got a new booking and intake area and a 48-bed minimum security housing unit strictly for inmate workers. The remodel of the original facility it entailed changing the fixtures and doors and some painting. And our total rated capacity after that remodel and renovation was 134 beds. The 2002 renovation and remodel has served us well, but it has extended its life, and we're in desperate need of some attention. Some of the issues that we face at the detention center are water intrusion, rust and corrosion to key security features, multiple leaks from the roof in both buildings, waste flooding problems, mildew and mold issues, limited housing options to effectively classify the inmate population to be in compliance with minimum standards of the South Carolina Department of Correction and the Federal Prison Rape Elimination Act. Inadequate public parking and employee parking is not secure. On December 9, 2015, the KCI Technologies, Bradley Kane, also brought in Ryan McCormick and Thomas Weil and GMK and Associates to do a study on the facility and the building to see what it was that needed to be done in order to extend the life of the facility for 10 years. What they proposed to us were two options. One is a 10-year maintenance plan which is an estimated cost of just under $1.6 million. The option 2 was a 10-year maintenance plan plus a facility addition, which is just under $3 million. The parking alterations would be $315,700. All of it together, option 1 plus the parking is just under $2 million, and option 2 plus the parking is just under $3.3 million. On the 10-year maintenance plan, some of the issues that we're having to that we have to deal with: site grading and drainage. If you look on the photos here, we're at the back southwest corner of the facility. The significant slope that drains the water against the foundation on the 2002 corner. The drain swells, which are located here, do not extend all the way to the back of the property. So all the runoff we get from the surrounding properties go downhill into our area, and it impedes into the building. Some of the other photos that we have, additional views of the corners, and you can see where the grade of the property itself limits us. You can see here the actual foundation at the northwest corner is below ground level. At the opposite corner, it's above ground level. That's where we have water coming into the brand new building. This is the 2002 building that was put in. The proposed solution for this aspect was to extend the top slope of the swells to the north and west property lines. Additional catch basin at the northwest corner. Reslope the grade around the building so water does not get trapped against the foundation, and repair any moisture damage associated with it. Between the two buildings is our breezeway area and a recreational yard. At the back of that recreational yard is a storm drain. That storm drain is completely washed out due to the amount of water that comes from the surrounding properties. You may be able to see here in the photo, all the surrounding earth around that storm drain is gone. The proposed solution to fix that was to repair the erosion at the box and repair the storm drain line as necessary. The rust and corrosion of the windows and door frames. Half of our windows, doors, and door frames show deterioration of rust and corrosion. Water is entering the facility at these locations as well. The proposed solution was to replace 2/3 of the new galvanized security frames, repair where applicable by cutting and grinding affected areas, repaint, and repair any moisture damage associated. One thing I do want to point out, this window here is actually one of our maximum security cells. This is where some of the worst inmates we have are housed, in these cells, and in time they would simply be able to push that window out. Moving on to the roof. The original building is a flat ballasted system that's about 12 years old and has an expected life of 25 years. The pitch pockets on the existing roof exhibit some cracking. It is a 4-inch parapet coping on the perimeter. The roof membrane does not extend underneath the coping, so when the water rises on the roof, it actually gets into the walls and then comes down and enters our building that way. The roof drains on the roof itself do not have effective sloping, so we have ponding of water on the roof itself. And the remainder of the roof membrane appears to be in good condition. On the 2002 edition, all of our leaks in the 2002 edition are coming in anywhere that there's a fastener for a panel joint or any penetration points for the fastener. This is some pictures of the roof itself for your reference. You can see some of the evidence here of the ponding of water. This is actually showing you what the roof parapet coping is. That would be this extending around the perimeter. And more evidence of the ponding. This is the top of the new building over here. And you can see anywhere that those sheet metal are put together is where we're having leak issues in that building. The proposed solution was to hire a third-party roofing inspection and water intrusion expert to define the scope and inspect the repairs once the work was done. Hire a qualified roofing contractor to do the repair and repair existing damage. Now we move on to the plumbing waste system. The current plumbing system that we have is the original plumbing that was installed when the building was built, so it's in excess of 40 years old. It's all a gravity-fed system. It's not pumped or forced. Existing waste piping possibly has developed buildup and corrosion that restricts the waste flow. Poor drainage in shower areas, toilet rooms, laundry, etc. Sewage backs up throughout the facility, hallways and housing areas regularly through floor drains. The laundry equipment, although is fairly new, does not operate properly because it does not have proper drainage from the laundry equipment. And poor drainage in the housing area adds to the humidity and the mold problems that we have in those housing units. The photos that you see here is an actual sewage backup that took place the day that I was taking photos for this presentation. This is in our maximum security housing unit. The cell doors on either side here. The sewage backs up into the floor drains and then it goes into the housing units where inmates are living. The staff has to walk through that in order to address the concerns with the inmate population. You can see here, this is evidence of previous repairs in two separate areas of the facility where they had to go in and cut out the floor to remove the old piping and replace it with new. The proposed solution was to replace all waste system piping with new and in its entirety all the way to the city connection. Reslope floor slabs in shower and toilet areas to improve drainage. General finishes, the wall and ceiling finishes are damaged. And the reason they are damaged, you'll see in the shower here, in order for us to fight the mold and mildew situation that we have to power wash. The power wash is removing the coverings from the walls. So we've actually repainted these several times, but we still continue to have to fight the mold and mildew issue, so the power washer is the only thing that can address that. The proposed solution was to replace end-of-life floor, wall, and ceiling finishes throughout the facility. Mold and ventilation in shower and bathroom areas. Poor ventilation throughout these areas are facility-wide. Corroded metal fixtures, possible mold growth due to high humidity in the climate. Is a constant maintenance and health concern. The American Society for Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers requires occupied buildings to include ventilation for toilet shower areas who operate 100% of the time while occupied. This is a 24/7 facility requiring the ventilation to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Moist, humid air must be exhausted. The existing roof exhaust fans are not operational the day of the study. This is actually clean. This was after we had power washed the showers. You'll notice there is mold and mildew in the corners at the top of the ceiling, and this is what's on the walls. This is the rust and corrosion on the metal fixtures in these areas as a result of the high humidity. The proposed solution was to report and remediate mold using a mold expert, remove corroded fixtures and prepare for recoating, strip the wall and floor finishes affected by corrosion and recoat with appropriate product, repair and reactivate existing exhaust system, rebalance airflow rate, and consider a dehumidification system for the AC units throughout the facility. The facility addition, as the administrator, we have difficulties classifying our inmates. We classify inmates based on a number of different factors, to include the nature of their charges, institutional behavior. There's also some other things thrown in. The Prison Rape Elimination Act has created some issues for us as far as housing. 64% of our inmate bed space is dedicated to pretrial detainment, meaning that those inmates have been charged with a crime and can't afford to post bond and be released, so they're waiting to go to court. 100% of those beds are located in the building where we have most of these issues. We currently have 4 possible areas to house these inmates. is a safety and security concern because of inmate movement. One of our housing units does not have a rec area, which we are required to provide rec. In order to give those inmates in that housing unit rec now, we have to move them to a different location in the facility, which is less secure, which requires more officer supervision. The facility addition, the proposed solution was to construct a 3,500 square foot structure, single story. The proposed design of the addition will be left up to the architect and the engineer to meet the needs mentioned without increasing staff. The proposed location would be connected to the housing unit that we have that does not have a rec area, so it will solve that other issue as well. This is pictures of the proposed location for the addition, which it would proposed it would go in this. It would connect through this building, through this doorway here, and it would be located in that area towards the street. The parking alterations, public parking is not adequate at all during times of court. The parking lot overflows into the grassy areas and into the street, which is a safety concern for the public. The employee parking area is not secured, and we actually currently are releasing inmates through that area, so the inmates are walking through the lot where the magistrate office and detention center staff park. There's no way to secure that area at this time. We also have an issue with the public coming into that area as well. This is just pictures of our current parking situation we have, and the proposed location for the expansion on the public parking would be in this area here. In closing, the detention center is one of the few entities that operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, resulting in unavoidable wear and tear. South Carolina Department of Corrections Inspection Division has noted the deficiencies that have led to our current state and are on record that these issues must be addressed and corrected in order for the facility to remain in compliance and operation. Safety and security and control are our primary concerns, and our current condition is affecting that, our ability to offer safety, security, and control. Thank you for your consideration. Any questions?
Yes, sir. How much time did the state and feds give you on the state on the correcting this situation?
They haven't given us a deadline yet. I invited Mr. Taylor, but he couldn't be here today. He's over the inspections division with SEDC. He hasn't given us a deadline yet, but he has stated that it needs to be addressed.
They also haven't given you any money either, have they?
No, sir.
Maybe you or the sheriff can answer this. Have y'all approached the county concerning this for assistance?
Approach who?
County council.
Mr. Chairman, I can address that if
Yes.
the committee will allow. These improvements to the facility, as outlined in, I guess you call it option 1 or the maintenance option, is $1.6 million. It's not just stuff that Mr. Kitchen and the sheriff want to do. It's stuff that the state is going to make us do. We don't have a formal declaration yet from the Department of Corrections, but we are not very far from getting that. This is something also that doesn't affect just folks who are inmates in this detention facility. If you own property, taxable property in this county, it affects you. Because if this funding doesn't come from the capital project sales tax, it will come from property taxes. It's something that practically we have to do. Now, what we've done so far as approaching the county, the council has approved first reading of what's called a bond anticipation note. What happens is we issue bonds for, it's about $2 million to cover this first part and the parking area that Captain Kitchen talked about. And if this project is included in the CPST referendum, then the funding from that referendum would pay off the bond. If not, then the bond becomes a general obligation of the county, and becomes a liability of the taxpayers. We're not saying this to insert ourselves into the referendum. It's simply something we have to do. If it can be funded this way, it will save the taxpayers. If it can't be funded this way, it has to be done. It simply has to be. I think Saluda County may be under some kind of similar order right now. I asked Blake Taylor, who is the head of the compliance division for the Department of Corrections recently, how far are we behind Saluda as far as getting a notice for non-compliance? And he says, not very far. I will tell you that a new jail is the biggest looming capital need of this county. Sheriff mentioned it could be between $9 and $12 million. Obviously, that's not a very popular thing to lead a referendum with. It's just not something people get excited about voting for. Even when you get into the weeds and start explaining the tax avoidance issue associated with it, in other words, having it funded by the penny sales tax instead of property tax, it gets very complicated. It's not a situation where we're trying to force anyone's hand. I simply mean to answer the chairman's question, has the sheriff approached the council? Certainly he has. It's his obligation as someone who runs the jail to do that. And it's the council's obligation to see to it that these improvements are funded one way or the other. So that is the long answer to your question, I suppose.
One thing now, you mentioned the 1.6 million, that's the phase that is pushing us right now. Is that, am I correct on that? 1.6 million, is that?
1.5.
Could you put that back up?
Was it 1.5?
1.5, 1.6, whatever it was.
Yeah. Yeah, 1.6.
So you're bonding just option one and the parking, or all of it?
That's correct. We are technically reading a $2.1 million bond ordinance right now. In fact, last Wednesday night, council approved first reading on that ordinance. And it's at 2.1 to cover the $1.9 million and any overages we might have contingency. So that's what we're planning to do. The difference, if I'm not mistaken, between the option one and the higher amount is adding bed space.
Yes.
We are not under any kind of non-compliance threat by Department of Corrections on bed space. We have enough of it. It was included simply because the strategy is to make this facility last another 10 years. And, you know, the prosecution of crimes sort of goes into an outer fashion, and jails fill up sometimes where, you know, lately we've had plenty of space. But there have been times when I guess the solicitor has been emphasizing, or the legislature has been emphasizing different things, where we've had people waiting in the jail for terms of court, and we were full. We just don't know what's going to happen over 10 years with that. But if we were, as part of the strategy to make this thing last 10 years, that's why we included the extra housing, the extra capacity.
And the other thing is, we've got plenty of bed space right now as rated. We're rated for like 130, and we got an average daily population of about 100. It's the type of bed space. There's fewer bed space in the pretrial sections, and that's where most of the prisoners are in pretrial. The 48-bed work center, which are for sentence inmates, those are the people that come and clean the county buildings, pick up the trash along the side of the roads when available, clean the library, and work in all the public buildings. That's where they're housed. Those are classified as a minimum security risk. We've got 48 beds in there. We rarely have 48 people in there. And that 48 goes to the total bed space. Where we're lacking actually is in the bed space in pretrial. We often fill that up very quick. And those are the people that are awaiting trial and have to be held in a different type of confinement.
Chairman, the sheriff used the term sentient being, it's one of my favorite philosophical phrases. if being a sentient, obviously it has sensory capabilities, it can perceive discomfort. There's an argument, of course, that we have an obligation not to make people perceive undue discomfort. We're not just talking about detainees, although a lot of these people are pre-trial detainees. They haven't been convicted of anything yet. We're talking about the men and women on this wall back here who are wearing these uniforms, who work in those conditions every day. So I wanted to add that.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm just seeing if there was any other questions anyone might have.
Commission members?
I have one. With Magistrates Court being held there, anyone who walks into that building is subject to the mold, mildew,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am. Absolutely, because it's the same HVAC system.
Mhm.
That was another thing when that building was designed. It had one ventilation system that covered the jail and the administrative areas such as the magistrate's office and the jail. So that's a very good point.
Okay, back to the 1.6. And we phase everything as we've been trying to do in this thing to get an idea before we score. But 1.6 in relation to what Mr. Adams indicated was the 2.1, I believe he said county council was at first reading on.
Excuse me, Sheriff. That's essentially to lay down a big enough marker in case we have any overruns. I know that the commission is sensitive to scaling issues and trying to accommodate as many purposes, worthy purposes as possible under the ballot. I can tell you if the commission is willing to do the 1.6, the county would certainly take care of the additional parking matters. Or I think if we're talking about our bottom line number, I think it's the 1.6 million.
Okay, you feel like the county council would, if 1.6 is in this particular bond, the other remaining part of this total project would be complete.
You have my word on that.
Okay, sir. Y'all heard that? 1.6, that is scaling down. Captain Kitchen and Sheriff Foster, is that suitable? What Mr. Adams was indicating to get this project, a possibility of getting this project on the ballot?
Well, I'm like Ms. Reed. I mean, we'll do what we can. She's a very wise lady, and I'll follow her lead in that. We'll do whatever we can to try to get it. And Mr. Adams posed a wonderful point that you know, we're going to have to pay for it one way or the other, whether it's going to come from the people that pay real property taxes or whether it's going to come from the penny sales tax where the tourists that come to the museum or come to the lake or wherever would be helping pay for that when they purchase an item. It would be paying for something that we have, but not out of our real property tax bill. And that's the beauty of this capital project sales tax. I'll steal a little bit of Walt's thunder there. The beauty of it is that it's done so much for Newberry County that we would not have ordinarily been able to do, or we would have really gotten sticker shock around Christmas time when our tax bill comes in. But we've been able to do some wonderful and innovative things and letting other people pay for it. So, and this is no different. And like I said, it's not a popular thing, but we do have employees that work in those conditions, and we do have people that are accused of crimes or been convicted of crimes that live in there. And again, it's not a Holiday Inn. You know, people say that we're building a Holiday Inn. It's no Holiday Inn by any sense of the word. And we welcome anybody to come take a tour. We're glad to have them to come out there. And as Barney said, we'll give you a show of the rock.
But I concur with the sheriff 100% because being public safety minded, you doing your job, and all police in the counties and municipalities doing their job, we have to have a place to house. There's no two ways about it, and I understand the regulations. When they come in, they don't give you much option. They just give you what little precious time you have to comply. I also like the idea of what Mr. Adams said, that, you know, if we can get this part in, we feel like the rest will follow. And that was the reason I asked you point blank the question on the conception of the project as it is. In essence, it will remain as the project as is if we could get the 1 cent solution passed in the 1.6, let's say this is part of the
Yes, sir.
part of the-
And I mean, my biggest concern is, I mean, certainly a new jail is needed, and a new jail is warranted. We just can't afford it. I mean, that's just plain and simple. And the other thing is, if we can just get it to where it is safe so that we don't have to worry of somebody pushing a window out and getting into the public. And the biggest thing I'm concerned about for the inmate population, but also for our employees, is the sanitary conditions that are in there. We really got to do something about that. That has to be done. It's a pretty dire straits in that sense.
That option one would take care of that part. wouldn't
Yes,
it?
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I know how important that is.
Yes, sir. Most important part.
I know it's not a Holiday Inn for anybody, but it's not a good place for anybody to be either, and I know it's certain rules and regulations y'all have to live by, and the county is subject to it as well. So it's something that general public needs to know that. And to the jailers and to the people who work out there, I sympathize with you on this. I think it's something that's gonna have to be done for your benefit and for, I'm not gonna say the benefit of prisoners and incarcerated, I'm saying for the benefit of more to the people who work there and the conditions they work in.
That's probably the hardest job in law enforcement right there.
It is.
I have another
And
question.
the least thought of, too.
Yes, sir.
I have another question.
Okay.
And I guess it's something that is probably on more people's mind than mine. If the CPST was not available and the county got mandated to do this, where would the money come from?
Well, here's more than likely what would happen. And that's a good question, Lisa. I'm glad you asked that because I had that in the back of my head and talked about it. Thank you so much. Mr. Adams would have to answer the question where the money would come from. But if we get the order to either do something or close the facility, which we came very close to happening in the 2002 era, that we were right on the border, we can't, because it's in the Constitution of South Carolina, we can't do without a jail. Now, we can actually do without a physical plant, which means we're going to have to find other places to house the inmates. And that would be going, there's not a surplus of bed space, by the way, across the state, but we would probably have to lease space from some of the larger counties, and that's going to be a premium, depending on how they figure it up, and we've already looked at that. It's anywhere from $50 to $80 a day per inmate. And we probably would have to provide the additional security for those inmates at that facility, which would require the staff to drive to wherever we have it. It would also probably mean that we would have inmates at multiple facilities. There's just not one facility that would be able to house that.
Are we housing prisoners for other counties at this time?
We are, but it's a swap. It mentioned the PREA, Prison Rape Elimination Act, and in PREA, you cannot house a 17-year-old with other inmates unless they're separated by sight and sound. We do not have that ability to separate sight and sound. So what we do is we work with Lawrence and Fairfield counties who do have facilities that can house a 17-year-old. In return for that, we'll take an adult prisoner and we don't charge anything. It's a wash. It's kind of a trade-off. And Mr. Adams could answer the question about how we would come up with $9 million.
No, I shouldn't come here to answer that question. The sheriff raises an interesting point concerning other costs, operational costs that will happen during the repair phase. If our staff folks have to drive an extra hour to and another hour back from the facility wherever we have to house these inmates while we're doing these repairs, because at some point, a portion of them will have to be relocated. There's going to be operating costs associated with that. Well, your council, particularly over the past 8 years, has been very good at preparing for the rainy day. And this is an instance where that will benefit the taxpayer. That portion of it, we would use our fund balance to pay for. And it's likely going to be several $100,000 to relocate these prisoners for some period of time. I don't know the exact cost yet until we get into the planning stage. But I can promise you, if the commission funds this $1.6 million, we'll use money we already have that has been put aside for the rainy day to handle the operations cost. And there won't be a tax increase associated with these.
So my question to that, why has the county council been doing that all along? Why wait now until CPST comes along?
Well, the emphasis that the South Carolina Department of Corrections has on its inspection procedures, it varies. And part of it has to do with the deterioration aspect. It's been since 2002 since we made these repairs. And we do tend to these repairs on a daily basis. They take up a great deal of our time. As far as putting aside the money to prepare for things like this, council has done an excellent job of that. And we can meet the operational costs associated with this without a property tax increase. But if we're going to go into the Treasury elbow deep at $1.2 million, ultimately, taxpayers are going to feel that one way or the other.
So either way, this was gonna get done.
Absolutely.
Whether it's bonded.
This is on the track to being done, absolutely. The bond anticipation note ordinance, which Theo DeVos has been working with us on, will probably be funded by late summer. And the Department of Corrections was not really keen on us making our plans to meet their mandates contingent upon, one, this project being on the ballot, two, the ballot passing. That seems chancy to them. They're in the regulation business. That's all they care about. So we had to assure them we are moving forward, and we are. And those plans are underway.
One way or the other.
Absolutely.
So it's either gonna be paid for in property tax or sales tax.
Yes, sir. That's the choice.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.